I'm just going to start this. My name is Felix, LaJeunesse. Okay, let me just see if that works. I haven't verified this before, so I just want to make sure that it works. Sorry about that. Feeling a little uncertain right now. Okay, great. I think it will work. Well, thank you very much for being here. So I'm Felix. I'm a virtual reality director, and I'm also co-founder and creative director of a company called Felix and Paul Studios. So it's a studio that is solely focused on the creation of narrative and nonfiction virtual reality experiences. I'm just going to give you a quick background check on me. So I'm Canadian, and I have been exploring the notion of presence for about 10 years. So I come from originally a traditional filmmaking background, but very early on, my colleague Paul and I have decided to sort of move from traditional film storytelling to immersive storytelling. And 10 years ago, virtual reality was not in our mind, so that meant for us creating stories through holography installations or creating stories through 3D stereoscopy immersive environments. And that really became the focus of our work, and we started to explore the notion of presence and how can we tell a story while maintaining and nurturing a state of presence for the viewer. And so we dived into the world of virtual reality in late 2012, early 2013, and since then we have not emerged from it. We're sort of deep into that stuff. I want to, today I think the theme is nonfiction, so I decided to sort of give you a brief tour of some of the nonfiction projects that we've created and maybe share just a few insights in regards to how we approach storytelling through that medium. So everything you will see are just a 2D preview, so we sort of rendered a camera sort of looking around inside of our virtual reality project, so it's kind of a preview. So this is the first ever project we've created is called Strangers with Patrick Watson. At the time, what we wanted to do when we began in virtual reality was not to tell stories. What we really wanted to do is to try to find what does it mean to just experience presence and sort of strip it down to the basics. What does it mean to be with someone inside of a space and to feel his presence? And so what we did in that project is we went into this artist studio and we asked him not to perform. We didn't want a performance. We were not interested in a music video. What we wanted to do is for the viewer to share a moment with someone who's vulnerable. And so we asked him to open up and write music, basically. And so it's really a moment that you share with him. And this whole idea of who you are as a viewer inside of a piece is extraordinarily important for us, whether we do a fiction or a nonfiction project. So in this piece, we thought of the viewer as a visiting friend. And we asked the artist, when you have friends coming over, when you write your music, where do they sit? And so he said, well, they definitely do not sit next to me. Only my girlfriend would do that, but a friend would sit about over there. And so that's sort of where we position the camera, at the height of someone sitting down. And we also told the artist to relate to the camera as if it was a visiting friend. And so we said it's a warm presence. You know, this camera is someone that you care for. It's not just an abstract machine filming you. And that relation, I think you can feel it through the piece. Maybe also another note is that we really do believe that the relational dimension between the viewer and the environment and the viewer and the talent, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, is very important. And we try to nurture that relation in our work. So this is a preview of a project called Nomad Series. So basically, we created a series of 3 virtual reality experiences that are packaged together in an application called Nomads. Each of the Nomads episode transports you into a different nomadic group across the world. So the first episode was shot in Mongolia with a family of yak herders. The second episode was shot with the Maasai in Kenya. And this third episode was shot north of Borneo with a family of sea gypsies, who are also called Bajau Laut. They are nomads living on the sea. These projects are about 10 minutes each, and they're not traditional documentary in the sense that they are highly experiential. There is no commentary, there is no one sort of guiding you through the experience. As a viewer, you are just immersed in a series of intimate moments in which you can really experience a sense of discovery and presence that is kind of unfiltered and very raw. And that's an approach that we truly love when it comes to nonfiction. So in all those three projects, I think that when we try to communicate ideas through virtual reality, there are some things that we would sometimes like to say in the work, but at the same time, we don't want to make it too directive for the viewer. So what we did for Nomads is we actually included a lot of the data in regards to the visited culture inside of the app itself. So it's a VR app, and when you enter the app, you have access to data, and you also have access to the episodes, which are all very experiential and not sort of didactic. So that's a segment from Nomad's Maasai, which was shot over several days in a community of Maasai in Amboseli. One of the things that I'd like to share with you is when we filmed with those amazing people, before we began the filming process, we wanted to share with the Maasai what virtual reality was about. We wanted them to understand what we wanted to accomplish with them and what virtual reality was. And so we offered the whole community to experience a full virtual reality experience, the first episode of the Nomad series called Nomad Herders. And so on that day, everyone in the community lined up, and one by one, the children, the adults, the elders, they all went through a full virtual reality experience. So these are photos from that day. And what was really amazing and sort of an epiphany moment for me during that day is I realized that those people, for most of them, never had any sort of contact with digital technologies whatsoever. And suddenly being immersed in virtual reality felt completely natural to them, even for the elders, because this medium is so naturally aligned with our way as human beings of experiencing with reality. It's sort of a natural extension of our senses, sort of a natural extension of our consciousness. And when you're immersed in VR, you just find your way very naturally, which is not the case of a device like this, for example, which is not what you could call sort of a natural way of interacting with reality, pressing button and scaling things and stuff. So VR is really aligned on sort of a natural extension of reality itself. And I could feel it on that day watching those people. And maybe an interesting anecdote is that most of them had never traveled out of their village and the Amboseli region, and they took their first trip abroad through virtual reality. I wish I had your transitions, Jessica. I feel like very... Yeah, exactly. But you have to teach me how it works. I have no idea. So this is a project called the Inside Impact East Africa with President Clinton. That's a piece we made a few months ago. It transports the viewer into the contemporary reality of Kenya and Tanzania, and it also looks at the commitments that the CGI is doing in that part of the world. So it starts in New York in President Clinton's office, and it sort of transports you with him as a companion through this journey. What I wanted to say here is that it was interesting working with President Clinton in the sense that he had a very specific message to deliver in this. And so although we're very much attracted to highly experiential content, now we had to deal with the president's speechwriters. And so we had to sort of merge our practice of experiential storytelling with one that is more directive in a way. And so we really sort of worked hard to balance the sense of self-discovery and presence that is so important for us to nurture in virtual reality experiences with a more sort of cognitive-driven message. And we think we did an okay job, at least at it. You can judge it if you watch the whole thing. And okay, lastly, this is a project we launched at Christmas. It's called LeBron James Striving for Greatness. So it's kind of an immersive portrait of LeBron, kind of an immersive dive into his preparation for the new season, so his mental training and his physical training as an athlete. And you know, we were talking about editing earlier. When we began, all of the projects we created were just single moments, like Strangers with Patrick Watson. It's a 5-minute moment. We felt that editing would really destroy presence. We felt that sort of traditional storytelling of taking someone into a moment and into another moment would just be a reset every single time and would just explode presence. And we tried to avoid that. But with time, we started to, in a piece like that, for example, in LeBron James, there are 30 shots. So we started to change our views in regards to that. And what we did for this project is we looked at it as an inner journey. We thought about immersing the viewer not just in a series of moments, but immersing the viewer into LeBron James' mind and sort of using his mind as a storytelling vehicle. And so when you watch this project, you never know if you're immersed into one of his memories, into a present moment, or into one of his projections, his imagination. And so we try to blur the line of physical reality versus, you know, what is sort of a subjective consciousness experience. And we realize that when we embrace the mind as a storytelling vehicle, it's actually easier and more natural to move forward into a narrative. And so it's something that we tend to do more and more in our work.